What if I told you that love had absolutely nothing to do with marriage in the Middle Ages? That your wedding night could involve an audience, or even a priest watching from the shadows? Forget roses and rings. This was a world where power, land, and bloodlines mattered more than feelings, and where being a wife could be a death sentence. Welcome to the truth behind medieval marriage. It's worse than you think. We've been sold a lie. Fairy tales, Disney movies, and knight in shining armor fantasies make medieval marriage seem like a poetic dance of courtly love. But the truth? Love was irrelevant. In most cases, the bride and groom didn't even meet until the wedding day. If you were lucky, you'd marry your cousin. If you were unlucky, you'd marry your enemy. Either way, you didn't get a say. Noble girls were often married off at the age of 12 or younger. It wasn't just accepted, it was strategic. These marriages sealed political alliances like handshakes between kingdoms. Imagine being a child forced to sleep beside a man 3 times your age because your father owed someone a favor. That was marriage. Consent? Not even part of the vocabulary. Marriage was a business transaction. A girl's worth was measured in cows, land, or silver coins. Dowries could ruin a family or make one rich. And if the bride's father didn't pay up, the groom could return her like a faulty product. This wasn't love, it was commerce in a corset. And the bride? Just the goods being traded. Here's where it gets darker. Some men didn't wait for permission. They'd kidnap a woman, rape her, then claim marriage had occurred. The law often took his side. She was now damaged goods, and no one else would take her. So the church blessed the union to preserve her honor. In truth, it preserved his power, her voice silenced forever. The church claimed marriage was sacred, holy, eternal, but it also turned a blind eye to abuse. So long as the union was legal, you couldn't divorce, ever. Even if your husband beat you, cheated, or vanished, you belonged to him in life and in death. And if you tried to leave, you could be excommunicated, or worse. A bride had one job: show up pure. If the marriage bed didn't run red with blood on the wedding night, she could be accused of deception, witchcraft, or even executed. Families hired midwives to fake virginity by smearing chicken blood on sheets. It was a desperate gamble because a dishonored bride dishonored her whole family. In many regions, the wedding night was a public event. Guests would literally escort the couple to bed. Sometimes the local lord or priest stayed in the room to witness the consummation. In France, villagers would bang pots and scream outside the house until the deed was done. Privacy? None. Dignity? A luxury no one could afford. Wives who couldn't bear sons? Useless. Some were locked in towers, sent to nunneries, or simply replaced with mistresses. Infertility was always blamed on the woman, even when the husband was at fault. And if she dared speak out, she'd be labeled a shrew, a witch, or worse, accused of adultery and burned at the stake. You'd think peasants had it easier, but no. While noble marriages were about power, peasant marriages were about survival. A man might marry a woman for her field. A woman might marry a man for his plow. Romance wasn't just dead, it never existed. And if a wife misbehaved, she could be ducked in a pond or paraded around town in a scold's bridle. Legally, wives were possessions. They couldn't own land. They couldn't testify in court. They couldn't refuse their husband's touch. Marital rape wasn't even recognized because consent within marriage didn't exist. A man could beat his wife with a stick as long as it wasn't thicker than his thumb. Sound familiar? That's where the phrase rule of thumb comes from. In some parts of Europe, men literally fought for brides. Tournaments weren't romantic. They were brutal contests of dominance. The woman's choice? Irrelevant. The winner took her hand, whether she wanted it or not. These public battles were entertainment, but for the bride, it was the start of a life she couldn't escape. Medieval women married young and died young. Childbirth was the leading cause of death among women. No anesthesia, no sanitation, just screaming, bleeding, praying. A woman could give birth 10 times and only see half her children survive, but she was expected to endure, smile, and be grateful. Her suffering was seen as divine. Not every woman obeyed. Some poisoned their husbands. Others fled in disguise. Some took lovers and paid with their lives. There are records of women leading revolts, challenging laws, even killing themselves rather than submit. Their stories were buried by scribes who feared rebellious wives. But the fact they existed, that's revolutionary. The plague changed everything. With so many men dead, women suddenly had bargaining power. Widows inherited land. Young girls were courted with gifts and gold. For a brief moment, the marriage market flipped. But as always, power feared equality. And so the church cracked down, forcing women back into submission before freedom could spread. By the late Middle Ages, murmurs of change stirred. Women began writing letters, recording abuse, whispering to one another. The first legal separations appeared. The grip of the church loosened, just a little. But marriage still meant servitude for most women. Change was coming, but slowly, too slowly. So why does this medieval misery matter now? Because echoes of it still linger. In laws, in attitudes, in cultures where a woman's worth is still tied to her body, her husband, her obedience. The Middle Ages may be gone, but the legacy of control endures. The truth about medieval marriage isn't just disturbing, it's a warning. And maybe, just maybe, a call to break the cycle.